Welcome to Vlogmas 2020, where I am vlogging every day in December leading up to Christmas. In this video, I am taking you kind of behind the scenes as to what I do to prepare for winter. And today is specifically about the boys' barn. So the first thing that I would do is put down some bedding. I've spoken before that I use the deep bedding system, which is where I keep layering straw and hay throughout the winter and then do a big cleanup job in the spring. So the benefit of this is that the deep bedding system works really well for alpacas because where they can feel the cold is in their armpits. And when they cush, they fold their legs underneath of them and sit on them. And by them cushing in deep bedding, it kind of wraps around their lower body and it blocks the cool air from touching those armpits and under their tail and the areas where they really would feel the cold. So they're kind of insulated underneath all of that. Their fiber is very warm, so they don't have issues with the cold. They struggle more with the heat, far more than the cold. So I use the deep bedding system where I don't even clean out the barn. I would just layer more hay and straw over the beans, which is their manure, and that starts to break down over the winter time, and that in itself will create a little bit of heat. So you'll see this whole process where we're using this deep bedding system to provide that foundation base in the barn for them to bring the comfort. It's also less work for me trying to clean up beans that are frozen. I mean, that's never fun. So this is kind of a way for me to avoid that. It just means it's a really big cleanup job in the spring that is very stinky. So something else that I was doing, I was cleaning that corner out over on the right side because we're going to put the water tank in there. I'd spoken about that on another video where we had moved the water tank out so that we could dig out the floor of this barn. That's something that's different from previous years. The floor is now lower, so I was preparing that corner to move the tank into it. I was cleaning that out, and then you saw me dig stuff out of that back left corner. That was my storage area from before, and it still is, but it's not as accessible anymore since we lowered the floor. So what I've done is I brought out these tubs, which is what I feed the alfalfa in. And I'm laying them out to dry, that I brought them out from storage and preparing them for the next day when we were going to start feeding alfalfa for the season. So here you see us. That is my dad in the dark jacket and my great uncle in the lighter vest there. And they are a big help to me here at the ranch. In recent years, they have both moved out here. I've told my story before that I started this business all by myself, and for the first 6 years, it was just me. And in the last few years, my great uncle and his family moved out here, and so he helps. He's 87, I believe. And then my dad retired last year, and him and my mom have now moved out here. So everyone is helping. And in fact, my brother is now moving out here next year in 2021. So it's going to be a big family fun time, I suppose. So these guys are great help in helping me do all these tasks, and they're knowledgeable about different things like building, which you'll see in this video. They do stuff that are a tremendous help to me. So what we were doing there was leveling out the tank. We put some bricks, some cinder blocks underneath the front end of it because the ground is not level there. So then after leveling it out as best we could, we were stuffing dirt and hay underneath to keep the bottom warm, and we have plans to insulate it better. So now, this is something that we just did yesterday. This was the last nice day before winter was hitting, which happened today, and you'll see footage of that tomorrow. But what we're doing now is wrapping the barn. You can see the structure here. It's a 3-sided shelter, which is the most basic shelter that is required for alpacas and llamas. They do require shelter, and 3-sided is a good place to start if you're starting small and you don't have anything else, you want to build at least a 3-sided shelter. And you can see here that we also built a lean-to off the front. That is the favorite part of the building by the alpacas and llamas. That's where they love to hang out. They love to be out in the open, and yet it provides protection from the rain and of course shade in the summer. And it is really their favorite part. And what I'm doing is enclosing that lean-to, wrapping it here with some poly sheeting that I got from Uline. This is 10 feet wide and 100 feet long. The roll is 100 feet long. And I forget if it's 4 mils or 6 mils thick. I will find the link for that and put that down in the description of the video. So if you're looking to do this, you can go find that. And what we're doing is wrapping it. So you saw earlier, we started off, we have these strips of lath. For those of you who don't know, they're just really thin strips of wood. You can see what we're using right there on top. That's a piece of lath, and they come in different lengths. But to start off, we wrapped the end of the sheeting around a strip of lath, and then I was gonna say staple it, but we're using a nail gun. So we nailed it to the post. Now we've moved to the top, we've secured the top, and the issue we were having on this day is that it's windy. As you can tell, it's very, very windy. Hello, Gus. And so we're on the end. This actually was the most challenging end, partly because it's where you start, but also partly because the wind was coming from the right side, and you can see we're having trouble. We were struggling with keeping the sheeting in place and trying to get it to not rip off before we could secure it. So what we did then was use pieces of wood that we've used in the past for this purpose, 2x4s and 2x6s, basically any kind of lumber that we had around where we could provide extra places to secure this sheeting. And then we weighed the bottom down with more cinder blocks, and I'll show you a close-up of that later on. There, my dad's carrying in a cinder block. One thing I find really interesting about all this is the animals being so curious. Alpacas and llamas, alpacas, I'll say this about alpacas. Something I say often is that they are very curious and very cautious at the same time. You'll notice that the llamas are much more curious in terms of getting close and getting in the middle of things, seeing what's happening. They got to get in on it. Look, see, there's Gus again. What are you doing? What is happening to our shelter? So you can see now we have both vertical and horizontal wood there that then we use more lath to secure that sheeting to, and weigh the bottom down with cinder blocks. And we worked all the way around. Trying to remember what I've told you coming up in the video. Okay, never mind about that. So here we are. Look at these more of these guys, just so cute. I love their curiosity, and they're like, whenever there's a change, they've got to check it out. What I love about this sheeting that I used here is that it's clear. So in years past, I've kind of used whatever was around. Last year, we used some white wrapping. It was wrapping that came on a house. So it did very well in the wind, and we have strong wind. I mean, the wind on this day was not strong, and we can get like 60-mile-per-hour winds. This shelter is up on a hill, and that works really well in the summer for keeping it cool. There's the Uline Poly Sheeting. Again, I'll put the link down in the description. But in the wintertime, being on the hill is kind of a disadvantage. And having this wrap around the barn keeps it really nicely insulated. And I've always wanted to use clear wrap of some kind so that the sun could shine in and warm the inside even more. And you have more of the greenhouse effect going on. So this is the first year in which I'm able to use it, and the roll that we got should last 2 years. So if this sheeting gets ripped up this season and is not reusable, then we have some more for next year. And you can see us trying to balance that out, and we had kind of messed up wrapping around the corner, so I had to fold it in the corner to kind of make it stand up straight. And we're just working right along. You can see more 2x6s horizontally across the front. And I am going to be leaving the opening on the far left open to go in and out, and I will explain that a little bit later. And here it is all the way down. It was fun to see the animals inside and outside seeing each other through it. And they're like, what is it? That's Gus in there. He is so curious. He has got to be in your business all the time. Well, he thinks it's his business. Here is the barn all wrapped up. I want to show you what we ended up doing. The 10-foot width of the tarp, or this sheeting, was just enough to fold under at the bottom and put those cinder blocks on. I'll show you from the inside. I really like that it's opaque like this, and you can see right through. Actually, at this far side, we had some on the inside, some on the outside, and it was pretty interesting to watch them. I want to show you what we did over here. On this side, you can see that I left this opening, and it's wider than openings I've had in past years. See, previously the barn was split right here at this post line. And so on either side, there was a little door or a little opening. And something I noticed was that if one of them cushed in front of the opening, no one could get in or out. So this time, with a group of 19, I wanted to make sure that no one was kept outside when they wanted in or inside when they wanted out. So we just kept the whole opening between the posts, which is 10 feet. That way there's no obstruction of going in or out. And they can come and go as they please. This was also a challenge. The wind seems to be coming from this direction, which is the east, which is why on either end we were having so many issues. So this one is not as pretty, but it was the last we did, and we were kind of rushing to get out of here. But I want to show you what the inside looks like, this being the first year that it is completely open, where it's not divided, and it's also dug out. So it's very, very spacious. You can see we have our hay bunk over there, and they're getting the last remnants of alfalfa out of that, and the bedding in here. So it is quite comfortable. When you step inside here, there is a distinct difference between inside and outside. For one, it's windy today, so you can feel that. But with keeping the wind out and then this opaqueness where the sunlight's going to be able to shine in, I think it's actually going to be pretty warm in here, despite having a 10-foot opening. And to secure the bottoms, I have these cinder blocks. I put hay underneath the cinder block so that it wouldn't rip the sheeting when the wind is moving it about. And then you can see I put the hay on either side. And as the winter goes on, these are actually going to end up being covered in the bedding as we layer throughout the winter. Come spring, we're going to have to dig for them. But we have 2 on each side. As you can see, or each section, because along here there's 4, 2 for each section. And you can see how we wrapped the ends around the lath to secure that. Now over here we have not done anything to the bottom. We need to be a little creative. Apparently it is deep, like taller on this side, because the sheeting did go all the way to the top. But because it's a dirt wall, we're gonna have to come up with something a little different, and because it doesn't go all the way to the ground. But I did bring these in these tubs that we feed alfalfa in because it's supposed to be snowing tomorrow and the next day. And I didn't want these getting wet too much because then you put alfalfa in it and it just sticks to the bottom and it becomes a mess. So I'll just keep those dry for as long as I can. We still need to come back and deal with the water tank and make sure that that is going to be good for the winter too. That's a project yet to do. Thank you for joining me today for Vlogmas 2020. I'll see you tomorrow.